a legendary hero, or should I say storied figure from outer space, and a vessel to the terrible demon god known as Hirudegarn. Today, we'll be taking a look at the story of Tapion. So, Tapion, wielder of the magical sword and enchanted ocarina that was used to defeat the evil demon god Hirudegarn once, but not forever. But before we get into that, let's go back further, before a terrible tragedy struck the planet of Conads. And no, I cannot pronounce tragedy for the life of me. The amount of times I had to redo the beginning because I could not pronounce the word tragedy is insane. Anyways, let's begin. So, over 1,000 years ago, Tapion alongside his little brother Minotia lived peacefully with his race known as the Conatians. Eventually though, after ages of peace, an originally unnamed race rose up. It wasn't until the English dub that they received their name, which is the Kashvar, and for the purpose of this video, that's what I'll be referring to them as. So yeah, keep that in mind, the Kashvar. These Kashvar were incredibly racist. They believed themselves to be superior to any other race in the galaxy, and so their ultimate goal was to wipe out all other races besides themselves. And so, when they came across Tapion, Minotia, and the rest of their race, they waged war against the Conatians with the goal of completely eradicating them. To help with their plan, using their evil magic, the Kashvar attempted and succeeded in reviving the demon god we know as Hirudegarn, who up until then was locked away as a stone statue, who once before was defeated by Tapion's ancestors. With the help of the Kashvar, Hirudegarn finally broke free and went on a rampage across the planet, bringing ruin and destruction everywhere it went. Between all the chaos and destruction, Tapion, Minotia, and a priest from their race managed to find a temple, and inside the temple were 2 ocarinas and a magical sword, which they then took back to Hirudegarn. Now that they were standing in front of the monster, Tapion and Minotia both took one of the ocarinas from the priest, which they then put against their lips, and to their surprise, having never touched an ocarina before, not being able to play it, they started playing it flawlessly. The melody that they ended up playing seemed to enrage Hirudegarn, and it got furious at them, yet somehow it was still unable to harm the two. Hirudegarn was now enraged, but very distracted. This was all the priest needed. He took the sword, rushed at Hirudegarn, and cleaved him in half. Despite his top half now being separated from his bottom half, it wasn't enough to put an end to the monster once and for all. It couldn't be killed, not now and not by them anyways. And so, as a desperate attempt to at least put a stop to the chaos and destruction, both Tapion and Minotia agreed to be vessels so that the priest could use the sealing spell. If you've seen the anime, this is the same spell that the Elder Kai was trapped with in the Z-Sword. The only difference now is that it's not an item, that's the vessel. It's 2 living beings, Tapion and Minotia. The upper part of the beast was sealed off inside Tapion, while Minotia received his bottom half. And so at last, Hirudegarn was stopped, but not before he was able to ravage the planet and eradicate half of the population. After everything had settled, the Conatian War Council held a meeting in which they decided it was for the best to ensure Hirudegarn would never ever return. And so Tapion and Minotia both agreed yet again that they were to be sealed away in 2 music boxes. This particular part is not emphasized by the movie, but if you think about it, it's incredibly sad to realize that this is the last time that Tapion and Minotia will ever see each other. I mean, sure, somewhere they must have realized that there was a chance that they would never ever return, but it's still quite tragic. And so, Hirudegarn was double sealed up, again, but it still was not enough. The 2 halves of the demon resonate with each other even through the seals, and in the fear that Hirudegarn would reawaken once again, the music boxes were separated across the galaxy. Minotia disappeared to a far unknown planet, while Tapion's music box ended up on, well, you guessed it, on Earth. 1,000 years go by, and the Kashvar have long disappeared. The remaining ones were tried and killed by the Conatians as judgment for what they did in the past. To this day, only one Kashvar remained, and he's called Hoi. If you hadn't guessed it by now, he's the main antagonist of Wrath of the Dragon, which is Tapion's movie. Seeking revenge and wanting to continue what his race stood for, Hoi searched the galaxy for the 2 music boxes. He first found Minotia's music box, which of course he opened, freeing the lower half of the demon god yet again. Unfortunately, Minotia all alone did not stand a chance against even just the lower body of Hirudegarn. This is the very last we hear of Minotia, and later it was revealed by Hoi that Minotia fought back but got crushed by Hirudegarn. The thing that I'm a bit confused about though is how Hoi managed to unseal Minotia's music box. We haven't discussed this part yet because it happens later on in the story, but eventually Hoi needs Shenron's help to open the music box of Tapion. So He needs the help of the Dragon Balls, yet somehow he managed to open Minosha's box, but we're not told how. All we really know is that Hoi did not have any way to open the box by himself, and I doubt he used the Dragon Balls before, but if you have a theory about how he opened it, I'd love to know, so definitely make sure to leave a comment if you think that you have a cool theory on how he opened it. Anyway, so all you really need to know right now is that Hoi finally acquired the bottom part from Minosha. Obviously, his next step was to look for Tapion's music box, which he eventually found on Earth. Knowing he cannot open it by himself, he hides his true intentions and asks our Z-Warriors for help, who then take the box to Shenron, who opens it for them. And you might not have really realized it at this point, but right now Tapion has been sealed away for 1,000 years. That's a hella long time, and so at last, after 1,000 years of being sealed away, out comes Tapion. Confused, not knowing why he's free again, Tapion yells at the Z-Warriors that they have no idea what they've done, and fails to elaborate before he runs off. He eventually finds a hideout, where he does everything he can to ensure Hirudegarn does not escape again, going as far as to not even sleep at all. After a while, Trunks finally finds him, and Tapion can tell that Trunks admires him and looks up to him, but wanting to make sure he doesn't slip up and let the demon out again, he keeps telling Trunks to go away. Then Tapion senses something. It's Hirudegarn's lower body that shows up in the city and starts wreaking havoc, just like it once did to his own home planet. Gohan and Fidel both step in, trying to save the city, but they don't stand a chance, getting knocked around left and right. Tapion can't let this happen, and comes to the aid of both Gohan and Fidel, who barely stood their ground, even just against half of the demon god. He takes out his ocarina yet again and starts playing it flawlessly, just like he did on his own planet back on Konats. Hirudegarn, now severely weakened by the melody played by Tapion, starts to get sucked up towards him, until he's fully sealed away yet again, now fully reunited with his top half. You can imagine this leaves a great strain on Tapion, now having a full demon god locked away inside of his body. He safely makes it back to his hideout though, but obviously in great pain. He's trying to keep Hirudegarn in, but he doesn't know how long he can keep him. It's at that moment that Trunks pays him yet another visit, but before either of them can say a thing, Hoi intervenes, smacking the ocarina to the ground in an attempt to snatch it from Tapion's hands. Before Tapion can follow up to do anything, Trunks snatches it from the ground and swiftly runs away. At this point, Trunks does not know what to do. He's been trying to make friends with Tapion, who's been constantly shooing him away, but he also thinks that Hoi is a good person at this point. Knowing this, Hoi tries to take his chance and tries to convince him that Tapion is truly evil and that Trunks can trust him because the demon inside is gonna take over and destroy everything. But Trunks and Tapion share a look, clearly trusting each other, after which Trunks finally throws the ocarina to Tapion, securing it safely, because Hoi's never going to be able to take it from Tapion now that he's paying attention. Hoi, now knowing that he has filled his only chance to gain possession of the ocarina, makes a run for it, trying to escape. After that, Tapion and Trunks spend some time together and get closer. They become friends and return back to Bulma's place. At night, when everyone's asleep, Tapion starts talking to Bulma, getting to know her and explaining everything that happened in the past and why it was such a big mistake to free him with the help of Shenron. He explains how he's struggling to keep Hirudegarn in and says that he hasn't slept since he was released. This shocks Bulma, so she makes a special chamber for him to sleep in without having to worry that anything outside of it would disturb him, causing Hirudegarn to awaken for the final time. Despite Bulma's efforts, it was still no use. Hirudegarn awakens for the final time, and this time he is whole again. The Z-Fighters do everything they can to hold off Hirudegarn, but it's still no use. He's just too strong and they go down one by one. Until the Grim Reaper of Justice arrives. Goten and Trunks fuse into Gotenks, go Super Saiyan 3, and they gain a massive power spike. For a moment, it seems like they have the upper hand. Hirudegarn seems to turn back into stone. Gotenks brags, as Gotenks does, and so Goku yells at them to finally finish Hirudegarn off. So they start charging their finishing move, and it hits, but then they realized Hirudegarn hadn't turned into stone. That was a cocoon, and out comes Hirudegarn's most powerful final form, now stronger than before, easily overpowering Gotenks, smacking him to the side and fusing them with a single punch. Everyone's horrified, and Tapion does what he can. He plays the ocarina for the final time and seals the demon back up inside him, but it won't last for long. He's very clearly struggling to keep Hirudegarn inside him, and so he grants Trunks his own sword, begging him to pierce his heart before he loses control of the monster and Hirudegarn escapes again. As much as Trunks knows what he has to do, he just cannot. Tapion is like an older brother to Trunks, just like Minotia was to Tapion. He hesitates, and he can't get himself to strike Tapion down. This gives Hirudegarn just enough time to break free for the last time, shattering the ocarina for good. Unfortunately for Hoi, this is where he meets his ironic demise. Everything seems lost though. Hirudegarn is back. At this point, everyone's out. Tapion's out. Gohan's out, Fidel's out, Goten and Trunks both out. They cannot do anything. But then, in the distance, it was Goku, now transformed into a full Super Saiyan 3, ready to put an end to Hirudegarn once and for all. In the meantime, Trunks saw his chance, and with a swift strike using Tapion's sword, he cut off Hirudegarn's tail, after which Goku launched his iconic Dragon Fist straight through the beast's stomach. The story of that move though, the Dragon Fist, that's for another video. But that truly was the end of Hirudegarn. Afterwards, once everyone has recovered and things settled back down, Tapion thanks everyone greatly, especially Trunks, to whom he leaves his sword, saying it was always destined to be with him. I mean, it's obviously implied that this is how future Trunks got his sword, only this is not actually possible since in his timeline, all the Z fighters would have been long gone at this moment. Remember how they were all like extinct because of the androids? Yeah, that. Of course, the movies aren't exactly canon, most aren't anyways, but if you want to make it fit, in the games, future Trunks mentioned somewhere that he got his sword after Tapion seals Hirudegarn back up. Obviously in this timeline, in the story we just told, Hirudegarn wasn't sealed back up. He was destroyed by Goku's Dragon Fist. And so this implies that Trunks might have defeated Hirudegarn in another way in his timeline, but unfortunately we'll never truly know that. One thing I will say though is that it's always fun to think of what if scenarios. And so it's basically left up to us to kind of interpret how the story of Trunks, Hirudegarn and Tapion ends in his timeline. So if you have any cool ideas of maybe how you think that story ended in the timeline of Trunks, then make sure to drop that in the comments. I'll make sure to reply and tell you how I feel about it. But for now, let's get back to the final part of the original timeline. Because after Tapion gives Trunks his sword, a little while passes and Bulma creates a time machine for Tapion to go back in time 1000 years ago, back to his home planet of Konats, before anything happened at all. And that's the last we've ever heard of Tapion. The end of his story.